Every Ponzi scheme ends the same way. The money runs out, the victims are ruined, someone goes to prison. You've heard that story. This file is different. This is the one time in modern history a Ponzi scheme didn't just take people's savings, it took down an entire country. In 1997, in Albania, an estimated 2 out of every 3 citizens had money in pyramid schemes. At their peak, the scheme's paper value reportedly reached around half the country's entire economy. When they collapsed, the government fell. Armories were looted. Around 2,000 people died in the chaos, and foreign troops had to be sent in. How does a scam swallow a whole nation? The answer is uncomfortable, because every switch it flipped exists in your brain too. Open the file. To understand how this happened, you need to know where it happened. Albania in the early 90s had just left almost half a century of communism, one of the most isolated regimes in Europe. Private business had been essentially illegal. Almost nobody had ever owned a stock, taken a loan, or earned interest. The official banks were slow, state-owned, and paid almost nothing. So an informal credit market grew in the streets, people lending to people at high rates. And here's the key. For years, that informal market mostly worked. Your neighbor really did get paid back. That created the perfect launchpad. A population with cash under the mattress, no experience with financial fraud, no regulator watching, and a normalized habit of handing money to informal companies that promised interest. Into that vacuum walked the schemes. And they didn't look like scams. They looked like the future. The schemes had names Albanians still remember: Vifa, Jalika, Zafari, Sud. Some ran real businesses on the surface: supermarkets, gas stations, a bit of everything. The businesses were the costume. Underneath, it was the same machine as every Ponzi: new deposits paying old returns. And the returns were spectacular. Early on, the big schemes offered 4 or 5% a month. Then competition did something fatal. The schemes started bidding against each other for deposits. 5% a month became 10. By September 1996, one scheme was offering 30% a month. By November, another promised to triple your money in 3 months. And a scheme called Sud answered, "We'll double it in 2. Run the math, and it's instantly absurd. Nothing on earth legally produces those returns. But almost nobody ran the math, because the evidence of your own eyes was stronger. Everyone you knew was getting paid. Remember the death sentence written into every Ponzi: it must grow forever. Rising rates are the machine getting desperate, paying more and more to attract the new money it needs to survive. By the peak, this wasn't a niche. It was the national economy. People sold their homes to invest. Farmers sold their livestock. Families pooled the money relatives sent home from working abroad. The queues outside scheme offices looked like the queues outside banks, because functionally, that's what people thought they were. And the social proof went all the way to the top. Scheme companies sponsored public events and were reportedly cozy with political parties. Some even ran ads on state television. When the IMF and World Bank warned the government that these were pyramids, the warnings were downplayed. The schemes were popular and elections were near. Think about what an ordinary person saw. My neighbors are getting paid. The companies advertise openly. Politicians shake their hands, and the government says nothing. That's the terrifying lesson of Albania. Due diligence by social proof. If everyone's doing it, someone must have checked. Nobody had checked. The machine's math arrived on schedule. In late 1996, the scheme's need for new money outran an entire country's savings. There was simply no one left to recruit. Sud, the scheme promising to double your money in 2 months, stopped paying in November. By January 1997, it was formally bankrupt, tens of millions in deposits, and behind them, no assets at all. The dominoes went fast. One after another, schemes froze accounts and shut their doors. Millions of people, retirees, farmers, entire extended families, discovered in the space of weeks that their life savings were fiction. The government finally froze scheme assets, but it was far too late. And here's where this file stops being like the Madoff file. Madoff's victims called lawyers. Albania's victims, most of a country, with nothing left to lose, went into the street. Protests began in January and spread city by city. By March, the anger at the schemes had become anger at the state that blessed them. Police and army units dissolved. Military armories were broken open, and by some estimates, more than 500,000 weapons disappeared into civilian hands. Parts of the country slipped out of government control entirely. Ships full of refugees crossed the sea to Italy. Around 2,000 people are estimated to have died in the chaos. The government fell, and a multinational force led by Italy, Operation Alba, was deployed just to restore basic order. A financial fraud ended with foreign troops on the ground. So what's actually in this file? Not that Albanians were naive. They weren't. They were running on the same wiring you are, in conditions engineered to exploit it. 3 signals fooled a nation, and all 3 are portable. 1. Social proof is not due diligence. The crowd can't verify anything. It can only copy. 2. Silence from authority is not safety. Regulators being asleep is not the same as the product being real. 3. Rising promised returns are a countdown, not an opportunity. And underneath all 3 sits the same question from the Madoff file, the one question every Ponzi in history fails. Where does the return actually come from? If the only honest answer is from the people who join after me, you already know how it ends. In Albania, it ended with a country on fire. The machine was never the exotic part. The scale was. If you want to know how money games like this actually work and how to see them coming, this is the channel for it. New file every week. I'm the Money Files. See you in the next one. Case closed.